Chapter 6. 7 Ways to Overthink. Okay, John announced, setting down his coffee with unnecessary force. We need to establish that yesterday was successful, right? No one ran away screaming? Define successful, Silas muttered, staring at his blank message screen. Because I've been typing high for 20 minutes and it feels too casual, but hello feels too formal, and hey might be too American, and... You're overthinking a greeting, Roman interrupted, then immediately contradicted himself. Although linguistic choice does establish initial tone parameters for subsequent interaction. See? Even Roman is hesitating. Julian exclaimed, bouncing nervously. I've drafted 17 different messages to Hope, and they're all either too energetic or not energetic enough, or the wrong kind of energetic. There are different kinds of energetic? Jake looked up from his phone, where he'd been staring at a blank text screen. I've been analyzing what kind of message Tina would want to receive, but I keep second-guessing whether direct communication or subtle interest indicators would be more appropriate. You've numbered your draft messages? James asked incredulously. I've created categories, Jake admitted without shame. Casual but interested, professional but friendly, and authentic but not overwhelming. That's not normal human behavior, Vic pointed out, though he was currently arranging yesterday's leftover flowers into some patterns while muttering about botanical symbolism. None of us knows what to do, Roman observed, gesturing to what appeared to be a relationship strategy flowchart on his tablet. I've considered 17 different conversation scenarios for my next interaction with Ellie, accounting for variables including weather, her probable caffeine intake, and current museum exhibition stress levels. You've calculated her caffeine intake? James giggled. Correlation between beverage choice and receptivity to intellectual discourse is statistically significant. Manager Kwan's voice cut through their collective spiral as he entered the kitchen and surveyed the scene. 7 grown men surrounded by phones, notebooks, flower arrangements, cameras, and Roman's dating algorithm. He sat down heavily at the counter. What exactly is happening here? Emergency consultation, John explained. We've determined that despite our global success in music, performance, and international diplomacy, we are collectively incompetent at romantic interaction. And your solution is? Mathematical analysis, Roman offered. Photographic evidence review, Jake added. Botanical metaphor development, Vic contributed. Message composition paralysis, Silas concluded. Manager Kwan stared at them for a long moment, taking in Silas's 12 different draft messages, Jake's photo analysis spreadsheet, Roman's probability calculations, Julian's energy level charts, James's conversation topic notes, Vic's symbolic flower arrangements, and John's detailed follow-up strategy plans. You're all insane, he said finally. We prefer thorough, Julian corrected cheerfully. You've been staring at your phones for how long? 2 hours, John admitted. But we've made significant analytical progress. Hey, ask them, Manager Kwan interrupted. All of you. Right now. Stop thinking and ask them to hang out. But what if, Vic began. No what ifs. Ask them. Now. 7 phones began typing simultaneously, and within 20 minutes, they had all received responses ranging from enthusiastic to amused to slightly concerned about their collective mental health. Plans were made for evening meetings, and the members dispersed to their respective anxiety spirals about what was to come next. Silas spent the afternoon switching between outfit changes and musical preparations, convinced that Meyer had chosen the indie coffee shop as some cultural literacy test. By the time he arrived, he was certain that everything, from his black jeans to the music he had chosen for his headphones, would be scrutinized for authenticity. Meyer was already seated in the back corner when he walked in, and Silas immediately began asking about the implications of her table choice. Privacy suggested intimacy, but the corner position could indicate an escape route. Her fair trade coffee order, he noted, might signal ethical consciousness he should acknowledge, but commenting on it might seem rude. "This place has good acoustics," he said as he sat down, then immediately wondered if that sounded too technical. "It's not about acoustics," Maya replied with slight amusement. "It's about the atmosphere." "You are overthinking," she observed. "How can you tell?" "Because you just spent 30 seconds staring at that guitar in the corner like it was going to give you the answer to a test question." If Silas thought choosing an appropriate coffee shop selection compliments was complex, John discovered that ignoring Sol's explicit instructions created even more treacherous decision-making territory. He'd arrived at her restaurant kitchen 30 minutes early and immediately began reorganizing the spice rack, despite her clear directive not to touch her workspace. When Sol arrived to find her spices arranged by both alphabetical order and frequency of use, she stood in the doorway watching John frantically trying to put everything back exactly as he'd found it. "You reorganized it, realized I'd told you not to, and now you're trying to unreorganize it?" she laughed. "I thought it might be helpful, but then I remembered you said not to, but then I wasn't sure if you'd notice I'd put it back, and I didn't want you to think I was indecisive." "John." Sol's voice cut through his explanation. "Take a breath." John paused, whisk halfway between its original position and its optimally efficient location. "Should I finish putting it back or leave it organized?" he asked plaintively. "Leave it organized," Sol laughed. "But next time maybe ask before helping." While Sol watched John's panic spiral, Jake faced his crisis in the karaoke room, where he had arranged to meet Tina after her evening classes. Every seating choice felt loaded with implications he couldn't decode. Sitting too close to the microphone seemed presumptuous, while being too far from the song selection screen looked antisocial, and hovering by the door crossed into escape route territory. When Tina arrived, still slightly breathless from teaching, she immediately spotted him obsessively organizing the song catalog and rearranging the table settings. "Please tell me you're not planning to analyze every song choice before we sing anything," she said, settling into the booth across from him. "No," Jake protested quickly. "Well, not intentionally. I mean, I was trying to find songs that would work well for both our vocal ranges, but then I started categorizing them by genre and difficulty level." "Jake," Tina interrupted with a smile. "I was teasing." "Right. Teasing. I knew that." Jake exhaled, feeling his face heat up as he realized he had immediately gone into defensive explanation mode. "Sorry, I'm not great at reading social cues when I'm nervous." "When you're nervous?" Tina leaned forward with interest, settling more comfortably in the karaoke booth. "Are you saying you're usually better at social cues on other occasions?" "No, I'm pretty much always terrible at them," Jake sighed, fidgeting with the song selection remote. "But being nervous makes me terrible in other ways. Like when I spent yesterday analyzing every interaction we've had to determine appropriate conversation topics." "You analyzed our interactions?" Tina asked, though her tone was more amused than concerned. "I created categories," Jake confessed miserably. "Professional but friendly, casual but interested, and sincere but not overwhelming. It was comprehensive." "That's either very flattering or very concerning," Tina laughed. "I'm choosing to interpret it as flattering, since you're being honest about it." Jake looked up from the song catalog, surprised by her reaction. "Most people would think it's creepy." "Most people aren't dating someone who overthinks everything," Tina replied. "Besides, I spent 3 hours yesterday planning conversation topics in case you talk to me, instead of just organizing song lists." "You planned conversation topics?" By subject matter and ranked by likelihood of success, Tina admitted with a grin. We are both ridiculous. As Jake and Tina realized their tendency to overplan, Roman discovered that applying mathematics to cycling could become its trap. He stood frozen beside his bike outside Ellie's apartment, paralyzed by calculations about the best cycling pace, route efficiency, and conversation-to-exercise ratios. Ellie stepped out of her building in plain cycling gear, and instantly noticed his analytical paralysis. Were you planning to ride, or are you conducting a physics study on bicycle aerodynamics? She asked, wheeling her bike toward him. I calculated 17 different route options based on traffic patterns, scenic value, and conservation feasibility. But now I'm worried that having a predetermined plan eliminates spontaneity, which might reduce the fun from our experience. Roman, Ellie said gently, swinging her leg over her bike, sometimes the best route is the one you discover while riding. But what about efficiency? Safety considerations? Optimal pacing strategies? What about just enjoying the ride together? Ellie countered, already pedaling slowly down the street. Roman hurried to catch up, his mind immediately analyzing their relative speeds, his gear ratios, and the most aerodynamically efficient riding formation. But as they settled into a comfortable pace along the Han River bike path, something about the rhythm of cycling began to quiet his analytical tendencies. Tell me what you notice, Ellie called over as they rode side by side, without categorizing or explaining it. Roman looked around, trying to bypass his usual systematic observation methods. I notice the way the light changes on the water when clouds pass over, and how the sound of our bikes creates a rhythm that's different from walking or running. And how does that make you feel, to hear the joint rhythm? Like I'm part of us moving together instead of just doing it on my own, Roman replied, surprised by his response. Hope found Julian hovering near the DJ booth in an underground breakdancing club, torn between his natural urge to bounce to the beat and his fear of overwhelming her with his intensity. You can move, you know, she called over the music, amused by his unusual restraint. This isn't a library. I was trying to find the right energy level, Julian confessed, his body practically vibrating with suppressed enthusiasm. Yesterday I was too much. Julian, Hope interrupted, stepping closer so he could hear her over the bass. You're in a breakdancing club. There's no such thing as too much energy here. But what if I enjoy it too much, and you think I'm not paying attention to you? Then I'll think you're enjoying yourself instead of trying to impress me, Hope replied, pulling him toward the dance floor. Show me what you've got. Julian's face lit up as he finally let his energy loose, and within minutes he was absorbed in the rhythm. Hope watched with admiration, occasionally joining in, moving in unison and apart. Runners near the Han River were few, where James usually jogged when it was dark, so people didn't recognize him. He suggested to Muse that they run that evening, thinking that physical activity might make conversation easier. Muse set a comfortable pace that allowed for small chat, while still providing the steady rhythm James had hoped would calm his nerves. Something is on your mind? My school activities? Muse observed, as they settled into their stride along the river path. How can you tell? Because you keep adjusting your pace already, the 5th time. James realized she was right. He'd been unconsciously speeding up and slowing down, trying to find the more intimate word, a sign, a place. I don't know how not to analyze everything, James confessed, forcing himself to maintain a steady pace. Then analyze this, Muse said, gesturing to the river view as they ran. What do you notice when you're not worried about anything? James glanced around. I notice how the rhythm of running makes conversation feel less pressured. And how you look completely natural doing this, like you're not worried about anything. That's because I'm not worried about anything, Muse replied. I'm just enjoying running with someone I like. Even though I'm overthinking everything? Especially because you're overthinking everything, Muse laughed. Watching you discover how to be present is fascinating. It's like watching someone learn a new language. As Roman learned to feel movement rather than examine it, Vic was about to discover whether 3 hours of botanical research constituted thoughtful preparation or obsessive over-engineering. He stood outside the pet shop where he'd arranged to meet Sarah, clutching his researched flower arrangement like evidence in case he might have already lost. Sarah suggested meeting at the pet shop, where she volunteers on weekends, helping with animal care and adoption events. When Vic arrived, the barking, chirping, and animal chaos overwhelmed his senses, which were usually focused on flowers. Sarah emerged from the back room, carrying a small tabby kitten that was determinedly trying to climb onto her shoulder. "You brought flowers to a pet shop," she observed with amusement, gently redirecting the kitten's climbing attempts. "That's either very optimistic about the animal's botanical appreciation or a complete miscalculation of appropriate gifts." "I researched the symbolic meanings for 3 hours," Vic admitted, offering her the bouquet while eyeing the kitten warily. "Yellow roses for friendship, white roses for new beginnings, purple tulips for enchantment, and baby's breath for everlasting love, though in an aspirational sense, not presumptuous." "Vic," Sarah's eyes widened, "you spent 3 hours creating a flower sentence to say you like me?" "It appears that," he said, wondering if honesty about his flower research made him seem thoughtful or obsessive. "That's the most elegant thing anyone's ever done for me," Sarah said, accepting the flowers while simultaneously preventing the kitten from scratching them. "Even if it is completely ridiculous." "Ridiculous how?" Vic asked, immediately questioning whether ridiculous but thoughtful was better than boring but normal. "Ridiculous in the sweetest way," Sarah clarified, settling the kitten into a nearby play area. "Like you learned an entire language just to say hello." The kitten immediately escaped and made a beeline for Vic's flowers, finding them the most interesting climbing structure available. Vic watched in horror as his carefully researched botanical symbolism was transformed into a cat toy. "Should I rescue them?" he asked uncertainly. "Let her play," Sarah laughed. "Flowers are temporary anyway. Besides, watching you try to explain flower meanings to a kitten might be even more entertaining than the original gesture." As night fell and members returned to the dorm, they gathered in the living room despite feeling tired. Silas collapsed onto the couch first. She said, "This was nice when we left, but what does nice mean? Good nice or polite nice? And should I have suggested extending the evening, or was leaving early good because it shows I'm not pushy?" John entered, still wearing his apron, which had become his security blanket. "She laughed when I dropped that whisk, but was it enjoying laughter or pity laughter? And when she said my organization system was helpful, did that mean really helpful or politely helpful?" Jake came next, carrying his song selection notes as if they were essential documents. She admitted to planning conversation topics too, which means either we're both ridiculous or we're perfectly matched in our ridiculousness. But I couldn't determine which interpretation was more accurate. Roman arrived with his tablet and immediately began sharing data. Our cycling conversation maintained optimal flow for 73% of the route, with 3 instances of great emotional connection. But when she said I was surprisingly present, was that commentary on my absence or appreciation for my current attention? Julian bounced in, somehow still energetic despite his emotional exhaustion. "She said I was myself at the club, but what does that mean when you're constantly monitoring your energy?" And when she suggested getting coffee, her enthusiasm level seemed real, but I need to verify the accuracy of my interpretation. James hurried last, still sweaty from running. "She said watching me learn to be present was fascinating, but fascinating could mean interesting good or interesting concerning. And she laughed when I admitted to redundant change of pace, but laughter interpretation requires context I don't possess. Vic had been sitting the entire time quietly, staring at his phone with laser focus. She texted, "Thank you for the flower tutorial and kitten entertainment, 47 minutes ago. Should I respond immediately to show attention, or wait to avoid seeming desperate? And does combining flowers with kitten chaos in one message indicate positive or chaotic association?" They all looked at each other, the weight of their collective amorous inexperience settling over the room like fog. "So," John said finally, "we're all completely hopeless." "Statistically speaking, yes," Roman confirmed, consulting his tablet. "Based on current trajectories, we have approximately a 12% chance of successful romantic progression." "That's terrifying," James observed. "But also kind of liberating," Julian added. "If we fail through overthinking, maybe we should try not thinking instead?" "How does one not think?" Roman asked with academic curiosity. "I have no idea," James admitted. "But thinking isn't working. We need to learn how not to analyze every action," Vic concluded. "That sounds impossible," Silas said. "More impossible than our current 12% success rate?" John challenged. The room fell silent as they contemplated this mathematical reality. "Hypothetically speaking," Jake said finally, "how would we learn not to overthink?" "Practice," Julian suggested. "Practice what exactly?" Roman asked. "Dating things," James replied vaguely. "Romantic things. All the things we have no idea how to do. Like conversation that flows naturally, knowing when to make a move, physical affection that isn't awkward." John enumerated. "Oh," Julian said, understanding dawning. "You mean we need to practice dating? With each other?" Jake asked, horrified. "Emergency romantic education," John confirmed, warming to the idea. "Practice scenarios. Controlled environment." "That's either brilliant or the worst idea anyone's ever had," Vic observed. "Probably both," Roman agreed. "But our current approach has a 12% success rate." The arm of the wall clock was nearing midnight. "Now," John suggested, his voice carrying the determination of someone about making a spectacularly questionable decision. "Now," they agreed unanimously, sealing their fate with the kind of confidence that only comes from complete desperation. Julian was already bouncing toward the kitchen. "I'll get supplies." "What kind of supplies?" Jake called after him, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "You'll see." Julian's voice echoed back, followed by the sound of cabinets opening and closing with alarming enthusiasm. Roman was frantically typing notes on his tablet. "We need structure. Methodology. A systematic approach to romantic skill acquisition." "We need help," Silas interrupted, watching Julian return with an armload of mysterious items. "Professional help." "Too late for that," James muttered, staring at what appeared to be fruit in Julian's arms. "We're doing this, aren't we?" "Emergency romantic education," John confirmed, though his voice carried the faint tremor of someone who suspected they were about to cross a line they could never uncross. "How hard could it be?"